Hi to my JFA family. It's so good to be with you this morning. It is time for our Friday recap of our Bible reading plan. We are talking about Mark chapter 6 through 10. As you can see, my spot is not as pretty as Pastor Austin's. He sits at our kitchen table and sees the really pretty view from our backyard. I am in a room that we have coined the dungeon. We do not live in a castle. We actually live in a cabin, so I don't really know why we call it the dungeon, but we do. It's a little storage area, and we have our workout equipment in here. So I listen to my Bible while I walk on the treadmill. So I'm standing on our treadmill right now. I put my headphones in, I listen, and I actually follow along because it's sitting right in front of me. So I'm not just hearing it, I'm seeing it. And I'm a very visual person, so that has really helped me in my Bible reading the last several years. So I'm not going to turn my treadmill on. Nobody wants to hear me gasp for air while I'm trying to talk to you, but I am where I read. Most of the week, this is where I am when I read my Bible. So I want to talk about two different spots in Mark chapter 6 through 10. I've always been very intrigued by him feeding the crowds, and we get to see both of those stories in this chunk of scripture. I'm going to start in Mark chapter 6 in verse 30. The disciples have just come back. They had been sent out two by two, and they've been telling people about Jesus, and they're all coming back, and Jesus notices that they're tired. And he says, I want to take you away so you can get some rest. He sees they're tired, they need recharged. When they get to shore, Jesus notices that this mass of people have ran to beat them there, and he has compassion on them. He's like, okay. So he starts teaching them. The disciples see that after he's been teaching for a little while, that these people are hungry. And they say, Jesus, you've got to send these people away so they can get some food. And he says, no, you do it. So now in this place where they're supposed to be resting, they have an assignment. No rest for the disciples, right? What I noticed in verse 38, these are the three words that caught my attention the very first time I read through it. He said, after telling them to go get the crowd something to eat, he said, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. Go and see is what I noticed. That's what hit me, that he's giving them an assignment when they're tired. And we're talking about thousands of people. We're not talking about 20 people they got to go ask, hey, do you have any food? Or even like say in our crowd at JFA, like around, 220, 240 on a Sunday, that would take some time to get around and say, hey, do you have any food that we can feed the crowd? We're talking thousands of people that you're sifting through. That's not a small task, and you're already tired. So what I got to thinking is, have we ever had to do something or, do something for God while we're tired? And we noticed that once we got on the other side of it, that he was in it. Have we ever been obedient while we're exhausted? Man, that seems like that happens a lot. He asks you to do something if you're obedient when you're just like almost running on empty. But the reason we do that is because what follows is nothing short of miraculous. He took 5 loaves and 2 fish, fed thousands of people, and there were leftovers. Leftovers are my favorite. Like leftovers through the week, and then you can warm them up and just pop them in and you don't have to cook another meal. So he didn't just feed the people, he even had leftovers. Like, that's the coolest thing. It was miraculous because they were obedient when they were exhausted. So you jump to Mark chapter 8, and I didn't, nothing about the disciples jumped out to me. It was actually the crowd that jumped out to me in Mark chapter 8. Listen to, starting in verse 2. I have compassion on the crowd because they have been with me 3 days and they have nothing to eat. 3 days. 3 whole days. They've been sitting and listening to Jesus and they don't have food. Like, that was convicting, because when was the last time that I didn't have one meal so I could sit and listen to what Jesus had for me? If we're being honest, most of the mornings when I'm on the treadmill, I'm like, okay, I can get through this. I can do my workout, I'll get through it, and then I can go eat breakfast. Like, food drives us. It's an incentive, right? So, but here was another observation. Not only did they sit there for 3 days and listen, when the disciples were sifting through again and trying to find food, they found some. So what does that mean? There's people sitting out there and they didn't eat, even though they had some in their possession. They did not eat. They were too busy and too entranced by what Jesus was telling them. So that really reminded me of John chapter 6, verse 35. It says, Jesus declares, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry. And whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." That whole scenario depicts your scripture just perfectly. They didn't need to eat. They were getting the actual bread of life. And that made me think of this whole reading plan, in general anyways. We're, daily, 5 days a week, reading for 5 minutes, 5 chapters. If we do this consistently, we're getting this bread of life. Maybe some of us will lose weight. I don't know. I want to get on board with that. But we are so excited to hear what you glean weekly from this and be on this journey with you. It is so challenging, but it is so exciting. And we hope that you have already noticed, that God is telling you things and working on you. And we thank you for joining us with us. And we hope you have a great weekend. And we can't wait to see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.